good people?
Hey, you're listening to Growing Up Low Country. I'm Liz.
I'm Danny. And Liz, it's another month, another new episode. So glad to have you back on.
Something I look forward to every month.
You and me both. But first and foremost, we would be remiss if we didn't say that our deepest sympathies and our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody that was affected by Hurricane Helene in western North Carolina and in the upstate in the Midlands of South Carolina. Liz.
And Tennessee.
And Tennessee, too. That's true.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's, I feel like us being from the Low Country and being from the South, like we feel so connected to the land, and it feels like it cheated on it. Like you feel betrayed when you go out in this, and it's all destroyed and discombobulating. And like, these poor folks, I mean, I know if you're watching, then you've probably heard, but the stories just keep coming, and it is hard to think about anything else. But we're hoping if you're listening to this, you need a reprieve from the bad news, and we can watch two old friends just hang out and have a little chat, and a little lightheartedness to ease your day.
Yeah, so let's ease people's day and get a little lighthearted. So what were the highlights of your last month?
Oh, man, I've been fishing a lot. I've been catching some trout, some flounder.
Okay.
Redfish bite's about to get on. And biggest highlight is I got a kayak that my husband and I can go in together because he's a tall man. And you should have seen trying to put him in a tiny kayak. Big man in tiny kayak was a near disaster. And it was not great. But now he can kayak and I can fish out the front, and it's a beautiful date day. So
nice.
That's been a highlight.
So where do y'all go fishing?
Cooper River. We put in over at Noisette. Now, don't be eating the fish that you catch out of Noisette, but it's a delight to catch them and release. And it's just, even if a bad day of no fish is still better than any other kind of day, I would say.
Salient point.
What about you? I know you've been traveling the world.
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago, I took my first ever trip up to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because my top of my sports bucket list was catching a Pirates home game at PNC Park, and I was so happy and just over the moon that I was able to do that and officially knock that off the top of my bucket list. And also, while I was up there, I got to just catch up with an old classmate of ours. Shout out to Victoria Bennett.
Aww,
who
I'm jealous.
she picked me up from the airport, and when she was driving me downtown, before we got to the Warhol Museum, she was talking about how much she listened. She was a fan of our podcast, and shout out to her, and also Jessica Sperling. She left a comment on the YouTube page. They both said that listening to us talk it just makes them feel like they're home, like they're back home. And I'm
come on back home. Come get on the show.
Yes. Hey,
come on.
Open door policy. And she took me to the Warhol Museum, and that was, oh my God, because Andy Warhol is one of my all-time favorite artists. Mm-hmm. And the museum itself is like 6 or 7 stories. And it took us a good 2 hours to complete everything, mm-hmm. like to complete every floor in the museum. And oh my God, I cannot wait to go back. I cannot wait to go back. And one of the things before I left for Pittsburgh, Victoria hit me up, and she was like, I'm really impressed with your photography. I'm like, really? This is coming from a photographer. And she said, she actually screenshotted one of the pictures that I posted on my IG, and she said, can you make me a print of this? And I'll make you a print of one of my photos. I'm like, you got yourself a deal.
That's
kidding me?
That's awesome.
And, so we met up and we exchanged prints, and that was super cool. Like, I literally have a Victoria Bennett Beyer work of art hanging up in my guest room in my house. Big shout out to her. And
I have a question. Did you eat a pierogi?
Did not get a pierogi.
All right. Well, you have to go back.
Yeah. I'm definitely going back.
It's just a folded up noodle with some stuff in it. It's a Yankee version of a noodle. They put some stuff in. But I think there's a potato aspect to it. You would like it.
Okay. Yeah, I love potatoes.
What about Permane Brothers.
I did have Permane Brothers at the Pirates game. I had the spicy capicola.
Oh, that sounds.
That was a good time.
Could you fit your whole mouth around? Like, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it's almost as big as your face, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they scale it down to the ballpark versus the actual brick and mortar Permane Brothers, but the one I had at the ballpark, it was a fairly sizable piece of sandwich. But yeah, I greatly enjoyed that whole experience going to PNC Park, which is cool because the Warhol Museum is only like maybe a 6-minute walk from the ballpark. And before we got to the ballpark, she took me to the right there on the riverfront where they had the walk and bike trail and stuff. And I was just so blown away. Just like seeing the Allegheny River and the 3 bridges and just seeing that beautiful skyline. I was like, man, I need to come back here more often. She was an excellent host. Victoria, thank you so much. Shout out to you. And then
and they had so much investment in Pittsburgh as this, the Hines family, and the museums are just incredible. Like
they are.
The kids museums all up to like space. They've got it all.
And the Hines Museum, I went to that on Sunday and got to see like all of the Mr. Rogers, like all of the stuff that he used to have on the set. I was like, my inner child is like doing like consecutive backhand springs. I was like, man, this is my childhood right here. Like seeing the Daniel Tiger puppet and King Friday and Prince Tuesday and Lady Elaine Fairchild, and they had the trolley. I was like, almost cried in that museum. That was an incredible experience. If you haven't gone to Pittsburgh yet, please do yourself a favor and go to Pittsburgh at some point in your life, because I had so much fun going there. And shout out to Breeze Airways too. They got nonstop flights to and from Pittsburgh. So good looking out to them. I got nothing bad to say about them. Actually, Victoria was the one that introduced me to Breeze Airways. So
$34 like round trip. Don't just wear all your underwear so you don't have to take a bag.
Yeah, pack smart. So now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast. So a new segment I wanted to try was the teacher spotlight. So what we're going to do is basically talk about a teacher that we had that was a real standout in our brain. So Liz, who's your teacher?
Well, I'm glad to go first, so you can't steal mine. Okay. I have 2 that I old guard.
Okay.
Miss Eunice Cox and Miss Marty Fancher.
Miss Fancher.
Yeah, so they were English teachers, and they were tough on us, but in such a sweet and loving way. And they're just the type of teachers that just brought out the best in you. And I want to say they were among many, many, many others. Like, I don't want to start naming everybody because I'll leave somebody out, but like Miss Morningstar, Miss Durant, like just a ton of great teachers who seemed to enjoy what they were doing. They all seemed to get along and like had a good rapport with each other and all the students. And maybe it's not like that these days. I'm not in a school. I have kids in school, but I hope that they get experiences like we had with really positive influences.
Yeah. So what was it about Miss Fancher and Miss Cox? Because I had Miss Fancher for English. So what was it about them?
She was just so jolly. Like, she was just sweet and jolly, and you could tell she loved books so much, and she loved that if we got into a book, we would get so, we had to watch Silas Marner. Do you remember Silas? Oh, yeah. Oh, that was the most boring book ever.
Was that in Miss Fancher's class or Miss Cox's class?
I want to say Miss Fancher's class, but
okay.
We made it through. But she could even make that interesting. And I just really, and she also taught, Miss Cox, I think, taught teacher cadet. And I was in there with Micah and Jenny. Like we had a great class. And then she sent us out into the world to try to teach the youth ourselves. And I realized they had a really hard job.
Wow.
I did not become a teacher.
You know what? That sounds like me when I went to college at Charleston, because I was going to try my hands at teaching, and no. It took me one day. I'm like, I'm glad I found out after this one day. I'm not cut out for this. But
they don't let you beat the children. That is really frowned upon.
I mean, I didn't want to necessarily beat the children. It was just like, man, they talk a lot.
Some of them need a beating. No, I'm just okay. I'm retracting that statement. We're just joking. But I will say, my Aunt Kay Myers has told the story when the first year she ever taught. She was maybe 20 years old, I guess, coming right, and she cracked a ruler over a football player's head. Like, because
really?
he was talking back, and that really set the tone, and she had absolute respect from her whole class. and her reputation preceded her. She never had a problem with anybody after that. And it was just a different time. Like, we used to get spankings in middle school, right? Like,
well, I heard like the legend of Mr. Barnes.
Yeah.
Paddle. I'd never experienced it, but it's just a lot of word of mouth at Berkeley Middle School. So I was like, you know what? I'll have to take y'all's word for it.
Paddling's happened.
Yeah.
But I think we should definitely move away from the paddlings. But I just miss having that camaraderie of people getting excited about reading books. I guess I should join a book club.
Hey, that's not a bad idea.
That's another part. We got candles. You gonna have books?
Books? Sure, why not?
I don't know if we got time for books. All right. Well, I want to hear who your teacher is.
Okay, my teacher spotlight was my 11th grade chem com teacher. Her name is Miss Willis. And what I enjoyed most about Miss Willis was she had some very idiosyncratic ways about her. Whenever she got in front of the class to lecture the kids, she quite literally never ever made eye contact with any of the students. She always looked at the walls when she would instruct. And what she would do is, just to make sure that the kids were paying attention, she would say a sentence, and then she would say, "What?" at the end to make sure that you knew the answer to her question, just to keep us on our toes. But man, I tell you what, when it was test time, I remember the first test I took in that class, I scored a 72. And
you're better than that, Danny.
Yeah, and she said that too in so much words. Because what she would do is when she would hand the test results back, she would call each student up individually to her desk, and she would call them in order of highest to lowest grade. And I'm like,
again, it was a different time.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, shit, when is my name going to get called? And eventually my name got called, and she handed me the paper with the big red 72 on it. She looked me square in the eye. She put the fear of God in me that day. She said, "You better get on the ball." Because unbeknownst to me, not only did she teach me, she also taught my mom. Oh. So that was double the reason for me to get back on my square the way I was supposed to. And I'll tell you what, from that point on, my objective was to get the highest grade in that class. And if it was not for that damn Craig Tenio, I would have got the highest grade in that class, because the day after every class, the class after every test, she would hand the results back. And I'm sitting in my desk like, I know I studied my ass off. I know I got the highest grade in this class. She pulls the first sheet out. Craig Tenio? I'm like, how?
Craig, is he a chemist now?
I don't know.
You better be a chemist is what
I don't know what Craig's doing now. I think the last time I saw him was at the class reunion. So it's been a good 5-6 years since the last time I seen him. Shout out to Craig. I hope you're doing well.
Chemical Craig.
Yeah, Chemical Craig. You know what? That might be the title for this episode. Chemical Craig. But
I'm glad that she inspired you. She put the fear of God in me, and because she called me in one time. Miss Willis said, "What do you want to do with your life?" Because clearly I was not going to be a chemist.
Yeah. And
she felt like there was really no hope for me. And if I wasn't going to do well in chemistry, like, what am I even doing on the planet? Like, why bother? I said, well, when I grow up, I just want to be happy. She said, that is the stupidest thing. She's right. I mean,
Miss Willis with the good old truth hammer. And speaking of idiosyncratic ways, I used to always love how she would always come in the classroom just like reeking of cigarettes. Number one. And number two, anytime she got a good laugh, she did it was like a Muttley style. She bounced those shoulders like you see nothing but teeth. That was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if she's still alive or not.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope.
You know what? Well, I can guarantee you that no one intruded in her house, because I can also remember come October, every October she would tell her class. Now, I know October's here. This isn't October, so this is appropriate. She'd say, and some of y'all think it is fun and funny to go toilet paper people's houses and throw eggs. And I guarantee you, if I see you out there, I will get out my shotgun and I will shoot you on my front lawn, but then I will drag your body inside and then call the police.
Oh, so she already had a plan.
So guess whose house did not ever get toilet papered?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Miss Willis.
Not to my knowledge. And if it did, that was a brave soul.
Well, that premeditation is something else.
She had it all figured out.
And you know what? Speaking of the police.
Oh, great segue.
Yeah, hey. But speaking of the police, a low country legend that I really wanted to highlight for this episode was former Charleston Police Chief Ruben Greenberg. And he was a standout to me because I'd never in my life, number one, seen a black police chief. Number two, seen a black Jewish police chief. I mean, it was like, if you would have told me these were going to be on my bingo sheet, I would have laughed at you. But yeah, he was
a black Jewish police chief in Charleston, South Carolina in the 80s.
Yes. Matter of fact,
80s?
he became 82 was when he first became the police chief.
Also a roller skater.
And that I did not know.
And he would strap on those roller skates and head up and down King Street and keep the people safe.
Yeah, shout out to Ruben Greenberg. And he had some very interesting, very cutting edge methods. Said Greenberg told his cops that their job was not to punish, but to make arrests. In order to do that, they had to be on good terms with the citizens. So he put his cops out on the streets, but not in cars. They walked, they rode bicycles, and horses were accessible to normal people who might not want to call or visit headquarters. He also required that every cop earn a bachelor's degree, whereas when he arrived at the department, not all had even graduated from high school. He added a K-9 bomb and drug sniffing unit, a harbor patrol, and a crime lab to the police department. And he retired in 2005 after over 23 years of service. This followed a controversial 2005 incident in which a motorist charged that he hit her car door after she told him that she called the police department to report his erratic driving. Health reasons such as high blood pressure were cited as the cause of his behavior for several years.
And you can speculate, but I think there was some possibly dementia happening towards the end, maybe. I just speculate. That's what the word on the street was, that because he was always so buttoned up and towed the line, and he and Mayor Riley were very close.
They were. Oh, that's a good point. That is a very good point. So now I want to talk about a thing that we all collected in houses in the Low Country that came from a specific grocery store by the name of Piggly Wiggly. And we want to highlight the good old Greenbax stamps. Mm-hmm. So
you segued from Greenberg to Greenbax.
Man, look at the stars are aligned.
The flow.
Yes.
Okay.
So what are your earliest memories of what are your memories of Greenback stamps?
You'd go Mr. Orvan's, Piggly Wiggly in Mott's Corner, and I'd go with Aunt Mert or Mama, Louise, and we would collect them. And then there would be like an afternoon, and your tongue would just be raw because you just sit there and lick them and stick them. And if you did that for 7 hours, you might get to go to the movies for free. Or, because you had to fill a book. There was a whole process, and then you had to go cash that in. But I'm 90% sure you could just show up at the movie theater with the greenbacks, and it acted like real money, right? Like you didn't have to trade it in, but you could also use greenback stamps to go to concerts, like 96 Wave. Sometimes
really
you could get a concert ticket with it was $5 or a book of greenbacks.
I never knew that. Mm-hmm. Wow.
But before you got the greenbacks lived in a big jar on the counter, and then if you weren't being productive, you need to go start licking some greenbacks.
Yeah, that's funny. My mom used to do that too. But we always kept our greenback stamps. There was a jar on top of the refrigerator. And I can't remember if we actually bought anything with greenback stamps, but I know she just kept a pile of greenback stamps in that jar. Do you remember any other things that you bought with the greenback stamps?
Now, I want people to sound off and correct me if my memory is inaccurate on this, but because the Orvins had the Piggly Wiggly and they had Orvins furniture, I feel like you could buy a couch with greenbacks. Like there was some kind of system where you could get furniture off of your greenbacks. I want to
really?
Say, I have some vague recollection of stuff like that.
Okay.
But I mean, that was a lot. Like you'd have to.
That's a lot of stamps.
A whole. Suitcase.
That's a lot of licking.
There's a lot of licking.
Goodness. Yeah, your tongue will be raw for real. I didn't know the Orvins owned Piggly Wiggly too. Mm-hmm. Man, shout out to that Piggly Wiggly. I used to love that, the one right by it used to be right by the railroad track. It's like as soon as you walk in, that's the smell of that smoked herring just punches you square in the face. And my papa used to go there and that would be the first thing he would get. And I don't even think he bought smoked herring and cooked it because he enjoyed it. I think he did it as a social deterrent, just to keep people from coming over. Because, I mean, you can smell that thing from like 4 or 5 houses away. I'm like, oh, there goes Papa cooking that smoked herring again.
That was in the same complex as the movie rental place.
Video Movie Land, yep.
And the snow cone place.
Oh, my God.
So you could just do the rounds right there. You could just live a very happy life and never leave that parking lot.
Yes.
I mean, you would need a VCR.
Man, I forgot about the snow cone place in Video Movie Land. Oh, my goodness. I remember they used to rent the old school Nintendo games, and I rented Roger Clemens Baseball. And I kept that for probably 3 months.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a big fee.
It's a big fee.
You could have bought it how many times?
You know what? I should have went and reached for the greenback stamps to see if I could do some kind of even trade.
Yeah. For whatever reason, my family rented Baby Boom with Diane Keaton like 20 times in a row. And I was like, well, hand it back. And then y'all just hand it back to us. And we'll just I don't know what the obsession was with that movie, but it was cute.
Yeah, we used to always get American Ninja and Look Who's Talking.
Oh, yeah.
Those were our go-tos.
What was your flavor at the snow cone?
Oh, the Tiger Blood.
Tiger Blood.
You can't go wrong with that Tiger Blood. Mm-hmm. That was my absolute favorite. What was your favorite?
I was more conventional with a little either cream soda or root beer.
I must have missed that on the menu. I didn't know they had those flavors. The pina colada one was really good. That's too. Mm-hmm. Yep. And now, speaking of buying things and hanging out,
that segues more of a stretch, but
hey, look, I was on a roll. I tripped up before I got to the finish line tape, but whatever. Such is life. Northwoods Mall, the place where all the cool kids hung out on a Saturday afternoon. So, what were your favorite memories of Northwoods Mall?
Oh man, I love the backstage deli. The pickles in that jar why were the pickles so delicious?
Backstage deli.
Other level delicious pickles. Big old sandwiches right next to the Gap. And then you could walk across the little hallway there, and there was where the picture developer, the Kodak place was. So you could just sit there and watch people's pictures come off the line. And sometimes you would see stuff and it would be people you knew. Like, oh, I know they did not mean for the world to see this picture. Because that brought people, like the whole world saw every picture that you developed. And you would just throw the roll in and maybe somebody put something they weren't supposed to put on that roll of film.
Ooh, gotta be more careful.
So now, dinner and a show. Yeah.
Zing! Backstage Deli, was that where Jason's Deli is now? Or was where Jason's Deli was?
Danny, I have not been to Northwoods Mall. I could not. And I'm not poo-pooing it. I just have not been up over there. And I could not tell you when.
Okay. I do remember Backstage Deli. I can't remember where exactly it was located. Then I'll tell you food place in Northwoods Mall that I love. You remember corn dog on a stick?
I mean, yes. That was, I did not go there, but I remember it.
That was my favorite. Corn dog on a stick, and that, oh my God, that lemonade was so good. And I don't know what they fried. It seemed like, I swear, it tasted like they changed the grease every time they put somebody ordered a new corn dog, because it always just tasted so fresh and so crispy. And I always look forward to sinking my teeth into one of them good old fashioned corn dogs at corn dog on a stick.
Were you allowed to hang out at Spencer's? Were you allowed to go in there?
I had to reach a certain age. I think I wasn't allowed to go into Spencer's until I might have been maybe 12 or 13.
Same.
Yeah.
Our parents were on the same page. Because then you go in there and you felt so scandalous. I always felt naughty and dirty after I walked out of there. But I remember going back, and I mean, we were just tee-hee-hee, on these sayings, on these shirts.
Yep.
And then you touch that ball or the lightning thing.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
And you came out of there just kind of a little bit different.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Too much knowledge. I shouldn't know all these things.
And man, they had an Athletic Attic and R&M Sporting Goods. I used to always go there.
I love that R&M. I love the smell of that place.
Yeah, me too. Just the fresh smell of sneakers whenever you walk in. They have the big wall of sneakers on the left-hand side. And that's where I always went to get my sneakers for the first day of school. And I would always get my sports gear from Athletic Attic, like my hats and my shirts and stuff. And they actually had a Texas Rangers hat in Athletic Attic. And I was like, okay, this is a sign. Because everybody in the mom was Atlanta Braves fans. I was like, I want to pick a team just to be different. And it was a white ball cap with it wasn't cursive script, but it just said Texas Rangers on. As a matter of fact, I have an old picture of me wearing that hat for Christmas. Mom got it for me. And that was I used to love Athletic Attic. And they had a music store in there called Record Bar. And I remember my mom bought the Run DMC Raising Hell on vinyl for my sister. And I remember just playing that record nonstop.
Yeah. And then you'd have to, depending on who you went with, sometimes you'd have to spend a lot of time in the Belks and a lot of time in the
Tallheimers. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Tallheimers. Wasn't Kerrison's in there too?
Yes. And you thought, well, for me, I thought my brain was going to explode. I was so bored in there. And when there's so much other interesting stuff right out the way, like, let's go do that.
Woolworth was my favorite. I think on Sundays you could get like 100 blow pops full. It was a super low amount. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but every Sunday we used to just wreak havoc in Woolworth.
You remember Morrison's cafeteria?
I do remember Morrison's cafeteria.
Oh, that was a great setup.
I never ate there, but I do remember Morrison's.
I remember going when I was like real little, and this is one of my first memories. My mama's, because I had chocolate pudding. I was like, please let me eat this chocolate pudding before I eat my other food. And Mom was like, no, you're supposed to eat. I said, I promise you I will eat my whole plate. And I did. And that put me on a trajectory of being a good eater ever since.
There you go.
But it was so, the people there, they could cook. And I'm again, like, I'm just curious what a meal there would have cost in like 1985. I don't have the answer. I'm just spitballing. I don't know.
Probably like $4.99.
I think you're right.
Man, and what? Speaking of restaurants, let's take it outside of Northwoods Mall. Let's take it down Rivers. Cause you had Grandy's. You had. Have you ever eaten the Duff's?
Po Folks.
Oh my God! Yes. Po Folks, man, I used to tear those clam strips up. It was so good.
Like, what year did Po Folks come on the scene? As like, our marketing team got together and we're going to call this place Po Folks. Like,
yeah, I love not poor. It's for
P-O apostrophe folks.
Folks, very specific. Caters to a very specific audience.
But did it? No, it catered to everyone. I mean, you'd see everyone in Po Folks.
What the hell? Oh, that's a good point.
Po, not Po, all the people.
All the people.
Because of the okra and the
Yes.
country fried steak.
Oh man. And you know who Grandy's had they had the best country fried steak. Mom used to go there pretty much every Friday after when she would get off of work. She worked out in West Ashley. I can't remember the name of the doctor's office, but she would always, before she came home, she would always stop at Grandy's. She would get mashed potatoes, country fried steak, and a 12-pack of the cinnamon raisin rolls. And we were good to go.
Did that have the white gravy?
It had the brown gravy.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can go either way.
Yeah. I'm partial to brown gravy myself, but you know what? If it's the white gravy, I'm not going to turn it down. I love me some gravy. But Duff's, I remember Duff's had a buffet that had a rotating table. And that was so mind-blowing to me. It was almost like the effect that it had on my brain seeing the rotating buffet table. It was almost similar to what we alluded to in a couple of episodes ago with Track Stars.
Oh, yeah, that rat.
Yeah, just the animatronic rat, and how it's like, man, this buffet table really came to life. I'm like, bro, and the fried chicken, A1. I can't lie to you. That fried chicken was something else. And also they had rallies on Rivers Avenue too. It was right there at Rivers and Aviation. And that was another place. If Mom didn't go to Grandy's, she would stop by Rallies and just get us burgers and fries from there. You remember Crystal?
Peace?
No, the actual fast food place.
Yeah.
It's Crystal with a K.
Yeah. I got not a huge fan.
Yeah, my dad isn't either. Well, my dad wasn't. I remember we were coming from somewhere, and he was getting hangry. Yeah. Like super hangry. And he was like, where's the closest place to eat from here? He was like, there's a Crystal right, like literally at the next light. So we go through the drive-through. He makes his order, and he was like, yeah, I want to get an order of the 2 chili pups. And he said chili pups. I'm like, I don't think he knows what he's in for. and he got handed him his food, and we took off. And he reached in the bag and he looked at the chili. He was like, what the hell is this? He was so mad.
Yeah, that portion sizes need work, but then you just get more of the gross stuff.
Yeah.
That's why it's so small, because you're like, ugh, that's all I want. No more.
Yeah, I remember Crystal. That was the biggest takeaway, and I remember that was the biggest memory for me with Crystal. So we're gonna, as we bring this episode to a close, what was your biggest takeaway from this episode?
Man, I learned about Ruben Greenberg, some things I didn't know, and I had bigger takeaways. I love how much you love Pittsburgh, and I think we should maybe do a field trip there one day, because that is my husband's homeland, and he's a big Pirates, Steelers, all the things fan. And I love that you have a real connection to that city. That's my big takeaway. What about you?
Yeah. I love my biggest takeaway was I didn't realize that Miss Willis taught you as well, and that she also instilled the fear of God in you, like off the bat. And I also didn't know about her threatening to shoot people that try to TP her house. Oh man, so this has been another great episode. I really enjoy catching up. You know, just the month in between that we allowed time. It allows time for life to happen. Yeah, and you know, and just when
I think we should encourage people who, if you hadn't talked to somebody who you miss and you just have a good feeling about it, just reach out and check on somebody, you know? Yep. See how they're doing, because it feels like, you know, a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and that people feel a little overwhelmed. And just to have a buddy, especially a buddy who's known you through every phase of your life, if you've got any of those around, reach out to them. And if you got a new buddy, just say hey, right?
Yeah. You were on my mind, so I figured I'd reach out and hope everything is going well in your world.
Because I was coming into this session tonight, I felt some stress, and then we've been talking 20 minutes. I mean, and now I feel so much better.
Yeah, you know, you really don't know how bad you need to just how bad you're stressed until you're talking to somebody and then that stress just, and it just leaves you. Yeah. Even as you know what, it's while we're on the subject, I talked about this on my mini-sode that I dropped today or since we last spoke. I have a cousin, she's like an aunt to me, and she really had a rough year this year between, she had a medical procedure, and then about 2 months prior to that, she lost her daughter. Her daughter was 35. And I can only imagine as a parent, the last thing you want to do is outlive your child. And every now and then we'll just call each other up just to check in and see how we're doing. And our conversations really at most are maybe 6 or 7 minutes. Mm-hmm. But for that 6 or 7 minutes, I mean, it's like, again, she can, it's like whatever's troubling her, it eases away from her. Or if it's too troubling for her, I'll ask her, do you want to talk about it? And then we talk about it. So in that way she can also, have somebody to express those feelings to, because it's not good to hold those feelings in. That's bad for you. That's bad for you mentally and physically. And she's one of the people that really got me into buying plants. Oh. So we'll talk about plants we bought or things that we plan to plant in the ground, or we'll ask each other, so how was your weekend? Or what are you planning on doing this weekend? And it's always a joy chopping it up with my cousin Marlo.
Oh, well, and also to have like a intergenerational connection, like
that's
have some
too.
Wisdom passed down. Maybe they learned something new, that's healthy. That's how things ought to work. And sometimes I get nervous that there's not enough of that going on.
True. Very true.
Just want to plug that.
Yeah, plug that. Oh, that's a good plug. So this has been another episode of Growing Up Low Country with Liz and Danny. Thank you for listening. Make sure you like, download, or subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find me at Danny Foxworth 843. There you can find all the videos for episodes for this podcast, as well as my baseball podcast, At the Plate with Danny Foxworth, as well as my other podcast, Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth, as well as my podcast about candles entitled A Wicked Good Time with Danny Foxworth. And for Liz and myself, we appreciate y'all listening. And until next time, y'all be good. We'll talk to you next time.